Welcome everybody to the Bowlers Union podcast. We have a great guest for you today. We have Hampshire hero, a man who since joining in 2017 averages 55 wickets a season, which is pretty much unheard of. We have Kyle Abbott with us today. How you doing, Abbo?
Righty, I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
I'm not too bad.
Good.
Obviously, I have Keith as well with me today. He's got some fairly impressive stats himself, but not quite as good as those, eh, Keith?
Yeah, not those stats on any level.
I did not have a clue that was that. You've pulled that out of nowhere, and I'm actually a little bit shocked, to be honest.
Yes, that's incredible, to be honest, both in terms of obviously the quality of bowling, but just to, you know what I mean, be consistent, be able to get on the park and even take them, especially bowling, how you do, nice and pacey and lots of overs. It's a great achievement.
Yeah, and hard on the eye. Definitely nothing easy about it.
Brilliant.
We're going to just get straight into it, Kev. A quick fire questions. Seam or swing?
Seam.
Pace or bounce?
Pace.
Back of the hand or knuckle?
Knuckle.
Nick off or bowled?
Bowled. Good
bouncer or a good Yorker?
Yorker.
Yeah, you've answered those exactly. I've known you long enough to know. But for those who are listening, can you tell them why you choose a seam?
So I had a feeling you're going to ask me this because I've been listening to your podcast before this and listening to each of the answers and that. And pretty simple. When I came over here in 2018, I was predominantly swing, obviously coming from South Africa, having to bowl with the Kookaburra that had a very small window of opportunity that actually did something before it went quite flat and soft. We had to swing it with a new ball. But you find here with the Dukes, the seams stay harder and you could always not only keep the swing going for quite long, but it always felt like there was nip at some point during the 80 overs of that Duke. But no, I'll take you back to one of probably the coldest days I've ever been on a cricket field, early 2018. It was one of those rare occasions that the ECB allowed us to have beanies. And we're playing Essex at home, and the wind was whipping through the Aegeus. Like, there's not much protection, but I just remember thinking to myself, what am I doing here? Like, on those occasions, you're standing there so cold. But I thought to myself, hold on, there's another man standing at first slip. I want to know what he's doing. And it was Hashim Amla. So Hash was playing for us that summer. And at lunch, or maybe at the change of over, I said, Hash, what are you doing here? Like, really, a man of your stature and caliber, you do not need to be playing county cricket in April, especially in these conditions. And he said to me, Abbo, he goes, the ball nips in England in April and May. He said, it is the hardest delivery to face. He said, your defense has to be so watertight. If it's not, a nipping ball gets through you. He said, swing, you can line up. He said, swing, you can always pick the line. You can trust the swing. He said, the amount of reaction time you've got for a nipping ball, he said, you've got to be on your game. So I've come here to improve. And that was a man coming towards the end of his career and arguably one of the best batters in the world. And to hear that, I was just like, well, why try anything else? If it's good enough for Hash, it's going to be good enough for anyone in the county circuit.
So Barks has kind of told me a version of that story. And I remember playing against you a few years ago in the games just after COVID. I think it was the year after COVID. And you had a bit of a chat with one of the Leicestershire bowlers then, a guy called Gavin Griffiths.
I remember,
Did you
yes.
relay pretty much the same thing? Because I use you as an example quite often, actually. If young bowlers are sort of talking to me about how they might go about it, you're one of my favourites as a watch Kyle Abbott and kind of copy it. And Gav, in my head, should have done exactly that. And I know he made a point of having a chat with you, didn't he?
Yeah. I feel it's again on these wickets, it's a go-to that can get so many batters into trouble if you are relentless and consistent with it. If you are a good swing bowler, I mean, there are guys on the circuit that swing it properly at good pace, that's equally as hard. I didn't feel like I was that threatening with a swinging ball here, and there's a lot of margin for error with that. I felt that if I was nipping it on and around off stump, I could confidently bowl my hardest, my strongest delivery each time, knowing that if I don't get it right, it might be a case of touch forward, touch short. But if you want to start, you guys know it as swing bowlers, you're running up and you're holding that ball and you go, right, I need to start this at middle and leg for it to swing and be good. And if it doesn't, it's down leg. And you possibly leak 4, you lose a bit of pressure or that. So since I've got here, I've gone, right, how can I hammer pressure down for as long as possible and make it difficult? And that's what I've stuck to. And to be honest, Wrighty, since I arrived in 2017 and started doing that, I haven't tried to do anything different. Yes, there are patches in games where it might reverse. You might have to use a short ball a few more times or whatever. But my go-to is 90% of the time wobbling it on off stump and going, well, which way is it going to go? Because most of the time I don't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah, well, just with Absolutely. That, I think because you've done it for that long, people don't realise you can swing it if you want. But I do remember last year, because Pop Welch has obviously wanted you to try and swing it just to show people you've got it. And I forgot who was batting, but you said to me at the top of your mark as you were walking back, I think you said something about how the batsman's lining you up, and you went, I'm going to swing this one, try and catch his outside edge. And you did. And it's great to know that even though you are someone that will crash the seam and get it to move about, you still have the skill to go and swing it if you want to. I think it's quite important for any bowlers that are listening. It's great to have one good ball and be really good at it, but you've got to keep adapting and just have other deliveries in your locker just in case you ever need it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's hugely important. You can't become too predictable. Even in 4-day cricket, you talk about in white ball cricket, but in 4-day cricket also, there's got to be a little bit of difference. And I think where I have been quite lucky, as I said, growing up with the Kookaburra, your wrist had to be perfect. And I always get caught up sometime in conversations about bowlers saying, oh, my wrist isn't great. And I was like, well, perhaps look at your head first. And 90% of the time, their head's falling away, which is causing their wrist to fall away. So they can't have that repetitiveness in their action, which I've been quite lucky to have. I haven't changed much through the years. No one's tried to change me. So I've been quite grateful with that. So when it comes to perhaps trying to swing one now and then, it's a little bit of a manipulation in my hand rather than a full action change or anything because I've had something quite repetitive. So yeah, but that it's come through 16 years of trying and making mistakes and learning from it and finding something and finding that feeling. Bowling's hugely about finding a feeling and a groove. And if you can repeat that and get comfortable with that, bowling's never easy, but it will start to become easier.
And also on that, sorry, I see you wanted to jump in there, just so I want to run through. So you've opted for pace instead of bounce. Is that because you get bounce anyway? You naturally get movement and bounce, but you've gone for pace?
Sorry, yeah. I actually feel I lose a little bit of my height because of my collapsed front knee. But I still believe that if someone bowls 140 kilometers an hour, and even if you give them 5 kilometers, 140 to 145 is very different. Even 135 to 140, I believe that there are still guys, no matter how good they are, no one likes uncomfortable pace. And I don't think there's too many batters in the world that will be going, yeah, I really like it when it's coming through at 95 mile an hour. There's very few. It's uncomfortable. And we've all been there. And I felt I'd rather have that, because if you get too much bounce, then if you hit the pad, it's going over.
Interesting.
I rate that.
Yeah, Pop was different. He saw it as bounce gets good batters out. Those were his words. It's interesting. Everyone's different in their view on stuff.
Yeah, no, there's definitely no way, or there's no right way with anything, any of these questions. To be honest, it's an opinion on what's worked for you. And yeah, that's all it is really.
Do you, based on what you've just said then, and your record is immaculate in South Africa and here, what would you prefer to bowl with? In South Africa, a kookaburra, or would you prefer the UK Duke ball? In terms of what's your favourite? Yeah.
So Barks,
Is that a dumb question?
Barks's face gave it away there, I think. No, I think I'd have to say the Duke. Even on the flattest days here in summer, always feel there's just enough. But some days in South Africa there wasn't an awful lot. But then saying that, majority of the time in those dry conditions, we got the ball to reverse swing quite a bit. So that brought in a totally different aspect to bowling. Tough one, because I love bowling reverse swing. I think it's great fun. It's a great skill to learn. Everyone, batters, bowlers, I think it's a great contest. But if I had to go forward with one, I'd say the Duke. It's probably more consistent up to 80 overs. It's probably more consistent with movement over those 80 overs than a kookaburra is.
Now,
class.
Kev, a lot of people don't know, and you told me this a few years ago, how your chance came. And I'm just wondering if you can explain to Wrighty, because he doesn't know exactly how you got your opportunity, and like you were away from home, you'd had a chat with your dad. If you can go through that conversation and what happened there.
Yeah. So long story short, I finished school in 2005. Played representative cricket, KZN. I played South African schools, and my first year out of school, I didn't get any academy gigs. No one wanted me really. So I came over and I played club cricket. I played club cricket in 2006 for the summer. Went back, worked with my dad. Went back in 2007, played club cricket again. Went home, back to South Africa, worked with my dad. 2008 did the same. And at the end of 2008, my dad said, I think, right, you're 21 now. You've had 3 gap years playing cricket overseas. Perhaps time to start doing something. And I was actually applying to what's the university called? I forgot the university's name now, actually, in South Africa. UNISA. It's an online university in South Africa, and I was going to apply. And I was in the process, and it was actually over a weekend. Graham Ford phoned me, and at the time he was the coach of the Dolphins in Durban, and he had coached me at school 3 years ago. And this would have been about October, November of 2008. And he said to me, "What are you up to? I see you've been playing cricket in the UK." I said, "Yeah, I'm back at the moment." He goes, "Are you around in Durban?" I said, "No, I'm actually about 2.5 hours away. I'm up at where my parents live. Don't live in Durban." He goes, "Oh, do you think you could get down next week? And I need some net bowlers. We into the season, and I need my bowlers to rest, and I need some net bowlers." And I said, "Yeah, I'll see what I can do." So I went down the first week and crashed at a friend's house and slept on the couch and on the floor and what have you. And 1 week led in, "Can you come next week?" And 1 week led into the next week, and then November turned to December, turned to February, still a net bowler. And I think it was the end of February, probably around about the 20th of February or so, 2009. Made my first class debut for the Dolphins, played 2 games that season, got a contract in the April, and haven't looked back.
So it's pretty amazing. There's a lot of people out there trialing who obviously look and think, that chance is going. There's no way I've got any time left, and they put pressure on themselves. But I think it's great to hear someone with the stats you've got behind you. People who have got to know you over the years through cricket just think you were as good as you are now, and that actually things were a lot more difficult. There were times when, like you just said, there was no interest from anyone. But you stayed persistent. Was it with that story? Was it something to do with the captain not going away, traveling with the squad to pre-season or something like that?
No, that wasn't me. I don't think. Not that I can remember.
No.
What were you like as a bowler then when they weren't they weren't signing you. Have you changed a lot? Because you don't strike me as you strike me as a guy who runs in hard, keeps it simple, intelligent. You've got good bowling intelligence. So why was no one having a nibble in terms of signing you before?
Because I used to bat 4 and bowl.
Trialing of the bat, I love it.
And bowl a little bit. Honestly, that's how my school career went. I used to prioritize batting by a long way, and I bowled well enough at school and was chosen as all rounders at under 19s and what have you. And then after that, like I said, when Graham Ford phoned and said there's a gap here, well, not even a gap. He didn't suggest there was anything for me in the pipeline, but to be a net bowler, I thought, well, I'm just going to give it a crack. And I found one thing I could do well, and that was bowl straight. And I haven't stopped doing that.
That's awesome. For what it's worth, I think you do hear the odd story a little bit like that, where someone doesn't realise how good they are with the ball. I think Stuart Broad was similar. I think he was at private school or whatever, but he was kind of an all-rounder and batted a lot. And then he just had a winter in Australia, I've heard, and he kind of filled out a bit and came back and bowled decent pace, got bounce and all that. But that's an awesome story. And what made you keep coming back for more? Did you just love bowling? No,
definitely not for the love of bowling.
Brilliant.
No. You know what? I found something. Like I said, I found something that was simple to me. And when I say simple, it was a fact of bowling straight. At the time, Graham Ford left, and my first couple of years there, Lance Klusner took over. And I remember this so vividly, and it makes me laugh every time I think about it. The third umpire came into the change room with a box of balls at the start of our innings, and we were about to bowl. And one of the senior bowlers, I can't remember who it was at the time, picked a ball, and the third umpire said, "And do you want to pick your second?" And Lance Klusner, as coach, turned around and said, "We don't need a second new ball." He said, "We're going to bowl so straight that they're either going to score 580 overs or they're going to be all out." And I bought into this thing, and he pushed me to bowl straight. And I just found out I saw the rewards. I saw that I was pretty good at it, and I think it was just that little bit of hunger of, I can get better at this. I can get better. And I think one of the biggest things, like I said, where I was, where Graham Ford phoned me, I was 2.5 hours up the coast, and funny enough, the same area where Lance Klusner is from, and you considered as, it's called country districts. I mean, you considered as real outsiders, and no one ever gave us a chance. And people around in the area said, no one makes it from here. You're just too far out of the mainstream. And once I started to get into that mainstream, I was like, right, I'm in this team. How do I get to the next team? So it was amateur cricket, and then it's the Dolphins. And I was always asking questions of, right, I'm in the Dolphins, but I don't want to be here. How do I get to South Africa? And I kept asking those questions and going back to what I did well and what I did consistently. And I've kept things incredibly simple, but worked on them incredibly hard. If that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I think
that's worth clipping up, isn't it, Keith, and sending out on socials.
Yeah, and I agree. Sometimes I think it does get overcomplicated. I know I've bowled with both of you, and we're all pretty straightforward and simple in what we're trying to do. And with that, can you just let people know what you look to do with the ball exactly? So I know you probably don't want to give too much away, but even if you did, you're that good, mate, you're going to still take 50 wickets most likely anyway.
So I get annoyed with myself unless a batter plays and misses. If I have 2 leaves through to the keeper and an over, I'm fuming. I do not want to get left. Like
that's a high bar.
No, like I seriously do. I'm like, right, I realize that's why I chose pace. I've never been express. So then I start to, I mean, I'm by no means a mathematician or anything, but I thought to myself, right, what is my best opportunity? I need to be hitting the stumps or hitting the pads. There, I've got a 50-50 chance. If he misses, I hit. But if I'm looking to bowl that 4th, 5th stump, suddenly I'm bringing in a third of the dismissals. I'm looking at edges only, where I'm like, right, I'm going at the stumps. I want bowled LB, and if they nick it, they're nicking it from the stumps. Every ball, I want to have a 50-50 chance of getting him out. And I want that for 6 balls, and that's me. And where I've been lucky and where I've overtrained it as a youngster, and like I said, under Lance Klusener in those early years of 2012, 13, and that was length. And I've been lucky enough to bowl, or to train myself, should I say, not to bowl. It didn't come easy, to train myself to bowl good length, that when I have gone as straight as middle, where some might be clipped, it's still a good length where they go, oh, I can't hit that. And they end up flat batting it. So my length has got me out of an awful lot of trouble in the years, and has allowed me to creep to middle and off for 90% of my time. I remember there was a game. I'll give you a quick little stat. There was a game against Kent. I want to say in about 2019. I think I bowled 25 overs. I only picked up 1 wicket for about 60 or so at the Aegeus. Joe Maiden came to me afterwards, and he said, "You made the batter play 94% of the time in those 25 overs." And I went, "Great, I've done my job. Like, I've created pressure. Barks might have got 6 from the other end.
5.
5. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, 5. But that's like, I've done my job. And some days it won't work, but the following week it might be 14 overs, 6 for 30, and you've bowled exactly the same. And that's where I've tried to stick in it and know that the process works. And over a lot of time and a lot of gathering of data and know what works for me and stick at it. And then the days that it doesn't work, not to panic, and know that the next day is going to come, or the next week, where it is going to click, and you are going to take 3, 4, 5, 6 quickly and start adding up. But as long as you're investing, you're going to get your rewards.
Well, that's interesting. Sorry, right? I'll keep cutting you off.
Right.
Just interesting what you said there, because basically what I've gathered there from you were told basically Klusener wants people to bowl straighter at the stumps. That might be because of the balls as well and the wickets, that's been the main go-to. I think over here, as a youngster coming through, you're kind of encouraged to bowl through to the keeper a little bit. Would you say, Wrighty? When you start off, when you coming into the first class game, it's like bowl through to the keeper to get a bit of confidence up. Yeah. Bowling a good channel. But it's only as you get older and that you find actually you want to take more wickets in all different types of dismissals, all 3, that you actually start to become more attacking. I think the mindset that you had early on of attacking at the stumps, I think that's great. And I think the more youngsters can do that and actually look at being attacking in the right way, rather than just trying to bowl a good lead ball or whatever. I think that's more beneficial of being attacking mindseted than almost a step back and just trying to get through to the keeper.
But in saying that's all good and well, but the key thing in the overall thing there is the length, because if you bowl middles, or if you bowl off stump and you bowl a half volley, it's still a half volley. Like, yes, you're bowling straight, but you're gonna go for 12 and over. Or on the other hand, if you're bowling too short on off stump, you're still going to go 12 and over. So your length is still going to be so key, where those in between shots, or that in between length where they can't go back or can't go forward, no matter what line it is. Majority of the time in 4-day cricket, it's going to be a dot because your length is good.
So you've used the term straight a lot. Can you clarify for us, when you say straight, exactly what line you mean? Because quite often people think straight is middle and leg. Do you know what I mean? If you're talking to younger players and stuff, they can often be confused.
Straight, personally, I would say the ball finishing on off stump.
Right.
However you get the ball to finish on off stump, hitting the top of off, is straight for me. And then I feel with the ball there, you don't have to change a field too much. But I think as soon as you start creeping onto middle and off middle, you now need to bring someone across and plug up the leg side, because now you are getting really straight. But yeah, straight for me would be finishing off really straight. When the ball's getting older, day 4, middle stump would probably be straight.
Yeah. And you've talked about your length and how you're really good at it, and yeah, completely agree. And for anyone who's seen you bowl, they would enjoy that. Is that something you trained a lot, or have you found that quite natural?
Trained a lot, but it's something I picked up quite easy. I think, like I said, because no one ever tried to change my action. To this day, no one has ever tried to change my action. If they have, I actually haven't listened to them, because I've known what's worked for me. So it was a case, again, I'll go back to those early days, because that's where we did so much of this groundwork of the foundation work. Was we very lucky in South Africa, we can bowl outside all winter, and it was 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and we were doing 18 overs a week, bowling at a little carpet on a good line and length, hitting the top of off. And we just repeated that and repeated that and repeated that every winter. That was like our default, our go-to. And I think I found a way with my action, with the way I bowl, I found a way to do it, and no one tried to tamper with that. So I became confident, and I kind of became at ease, became one with it, knowing that this is my default. If everything goes wrong, I can go back to this length and it will be okay.
That's part of the conversation we had with Pop Welch, how he's found the best bowlers he's worked with can be a little bit stubborn. Look, you just said there, like that. Yeah, I may have heard what you've said, but I'm not changing. You must have found something that's worked for you, and you're going, I'm not going away from that because this works, and I back it 100%. And I think that's brilliant, mate. I really do. Sorry, I've got a fly in the kitchen. I'm going to waft it away. I wanted to I don't think many people have spoken to you about this. Not on the podcast anyway, but I played in a game with you against Somerset. And right, it was one of the flattest decks I've ever come across. And we won quite comprehensively. It wasn't easy, but Kyle Abbott took 17 wickets in the game. What was it that you were finding in that wicket that no one else was?
So I'm just trying to think. The first innings, I remember, end of day 1 was under lights, and it was still quite green, and it nipped really, really well that game, and it went both ways. I'm trying to think of a couple. Tom Abel, I think, left one from about 6 stump, came back and hit off stump.
Yeah.
Hildreth nicked off on a very similar line, so it went the other way. It was just one of those days where it was going both ways. I didn't have a clue, and it just started to unravel a little bit for Somerset. And then in the second innings, it started to reverse. And as I said earlier, with that cooker, like it's a fun skill when it's done. When you get it to reverse and it goes late and it goes quick, it's great fun. And I remember even that one or two, I think it might have been Craig Overton, I think I actually turned the ball around and got it to kind of just not even, it didn't swing, but kind of just held its line and was playing for the in swinger, obviously reversing, and kind of got the faint edge through. So there were a few different skills, or I'd say skills across that game. But honestly, the biggest thing that day, and I still look back at it, I don't think people appreciate the amount of luck that went into that, and just how stars aligned, because you were on the other end. Fidel Edwards was on the other end with a reverse swinging ball. Why was there not a dodgy umpiring decision here? Dorse got balls to turn. Everyone was threatening in that game. Like there was all four of us were doing something with it. And cricket's a funny game. It just happened to be my day then. But I don't think you can write off the amount of luck and how stars aligned in that game.
Well, it was unbelievable. And one thing I want to say, which on day 4, there was nothing. I feel like there was nothing in his tank, Wrighty. Abbo was.
There never is.
Running on fumes, but kept steaming in, kept taking wickets. But that was obviously the thing that probably helped you keep going, just picking up wickets at the right time to keep you on. But nothing left in the tank. And then I do remember Abbo saying, I forgot who you got the message passed over to the director of cricket that, look, I'm going to keep going, but if I do this, I want a hotel room sorting out. I don't want to have to leave the ground at all. I'm not going home. I want a hotel room, drinks sorted out, and thumbs up. Got the go ahead, steamed in, won us the game. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember that the 12th man came on, and I think I'd taken 15, and he's like, only one other person's taken 16. I was like, oh yeah, all right. I didn't quite know. He's like, all coming from the director of cricket. Took 16 and came on. He goes, right, so you've equaled now. If you take one more, no one's ever taken 16 for Hampshire. I said, right, tell the director of cricket if I take 17 and set this. I said, I'm going to drink 17 beers and I'm going to end up in that hotel. So, and he was obliging at the end of the day. But it was good fun. It was as you said, like, it's those wickets that keep you going. And you guys as bowlers, when you start, you at the, this feeling, you're at the back end of like a 6 or a 7 over spell. You bowled, say 6.3 overs, you got 3 to go, and you're thinking, I really hope I don't get a wicket yet. That's where I might hang it in the channel through to the keeper, and the captain just goes, yeah, just take a blow, because if you pick up one, you got another over.
Brilliant. You've obviously got like an incredible kind of drive and mentality when you bowl. Is this something you've always had, or have, did someone help you establish it, or have you got like a role model or someone you've got in your mind when you're doing it, or you know what I mean? Or are you trying to? Is there a bowling hero out there that you copying, or what? Or is this just what you're like?
I think, as I said, before I got that second opportunity when Graham Ford phoned me, it was quite a motivation not to go to university. I was thinking, I need to do something here, because I really don't want to go to university, and I don't want to live off the parents anymore. So that was quite a big driving force for me to actually have a career in sport. I was like, I really want to be a professional cricketer. I was determined to do that. And I think, as I said, like, it was always a case of how do I get to the next level? Those are the questions I was asking. And absolutely, like, around the time, I go back to Lance Klusner a lot. He was mentally one of, I have to give him probably the most amount of credit, because I'd probably been playing 2 or 3 years and had settled into a nice little contract at the Dolphins and pretty much cruising. And he came in there and put a firecracker under me and said, this was rubbish. You need to play. You need to go higher than this, or you can, like, you've got potential. And I'd never saw it. And he guided me through, like, probably a good 18 months before playing for South Africa, which put a lot of credits, and I have a lot of respect for him. So he's probably the guy I go to back to the most, even now. Man of very few words, keeps it. He's got a great saying of just keep it simple. And I remember the night before I made my test debut, I phoned him, and our conversation lasted all of about 20 seconds. And I said, "Listen," I said, "Zulu, I'm making my debut tomorrow." And he goes, "Oh no, yeah, great, congratulations." I was like, "Yeah, I'm looking forward to it." He goes, "Okay, yeah, cool. Well, keep it tidy out there, and I'll chat to you tomorrow." And like, I got off the phone, and I was like, "Is that what I wanted to hear?" Like, he gave me nothing. I'm 25, 26 years old here, going into a test match, and he's told me to keep it tidy. And I was like straight away, I started to like panic a little bit. I was like, what? And then I started to think, right, what's he about? What's he about? And he's always been transparent and direct with me. And I was like, if he had anything to say or was worried, he would have said something. But he said nothing to me, and that was actually the best thing. It's like almost like, you're ready, just go. Like, you'll be fine. In no fewer words. So yeah, he's probably the one I lean on most. Never tried to copy him. I always enjoyed Glenn McGrath. I'd never say I really copied him, but those sort of bowlers, Ryan Harris, Josh Hazlewood, I feel like those guys that just plug away. Sean Pollock, just like mechanical and just line and length, just repetitive and believing in it. And they're some of the best around. Vernon Philander, another one, just optimized what they had, and that was bowling hard and straight and making batters play consistently.
So your test average is 22, which is obviously phenomenal. So did you find your bowling straight philosophy was immediately fine for the highest level of the game as well?
Yeah. So obviously that was Kookaburra's majority of it, except when we played in India. But yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, I just try to make batters play an awful lot. And again, it was the length. I could always get myself out of trouble, even at that level. That if I snuck onto that straighter line, that my length got me out of trouble. But that was something that I practiced so much that I was obviously. I mean, no one just gets into international cricket and just runs away with. Well, guys do, but it certainly helped me get into Test match cricket quicker by knowing that I've got a default here of a line and length, and that if I stick to that, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, that's mint. I feel like I keep having all these different questions, so I'm sorry if it feels disjointed.
No, it's okay.
I'd like to ask you. You mentioned reverse swing and how you love reversing the ball. And you don't see it loads in the UK, particularly. I don't know what you think in county cricket. What is your advice about preparing the ball for reverse swing? I know you can't literally prepare the ball in theory. And do you do anything different in terms of technically or anything like that?
Yeah, weirdly, I've found the Duke incredibly hard to reverse. In the same breath, when it does, it probably goes more than a Kookaburra, but those times are few and far between. And there's been times in summers here where that ball is looking in fantastic nick to reverse. It's dry, it's roughed up, it's smooth, and it goes conventionally, and you're just like, you don't understand it. So I can't answer that because I haven't found one thing to work here, because there have been so many times where the ball does look really good and it doesn't reverse at all, and then sometimes it goes around corners. But in saying that, I could probably, since 2017, even if I go back to 2014 when I first played for Hampshire, I remember one game reversing there. It was against Essex. Were you at Essex in 2014?
No, he wasn't.
No. I can't remember. It's Tamel Mills, Monty Panesar was still playing.
They were there after me, but they would have been there then. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember that game. As Barks mentioned, the Somerset game in 2019. I'm trying to think. When we played Gloucester last year, Barks, I think it might have gone a little bit, but yeah, it's a tough one. I'm not sure. But then you go back to that 2005 Ashes and England, Simon Jones reversed that thing around corners. So I don't know if it has been a change of the balls, or as everyone knows here in England, like even in the height of summer, that like it still has like sometimes a damp feeling around if the ball just doesn't actually get 100% dry.
Keith's pretty sweaty as well, so if you play with Keith, he's sweating all over it.
But yeah, I think there's not much to give away. Everyone knows that you need a rough side and you need a smooth side. But yeah, it's definitely not straightforward here in the UK. Not as consistent. Where if you go over 4 days in South Africa with Kookaburra, I'd be 90% sure that at some point during that game it will reverse. I think it's just a ball manufacturing thing.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I did a winter in Sri Lanka, like when I was younger, so I was very much trying to take everything in. And they said the ball had to be round. That was their philosophy on it. So the seam had to have almost gone, which obviously with a Duke is quite hard, right? There's always a seam there, kind of acting as a bit of a rudder. I know Warwickshire, Belly was insistent. Complete hands off, wasn't he? Got to be dry. And then I know Kevin Shine with England Lions. He's adamant that you can do whatever you want. As long as you've got a rough side, you can do whatever you want to the other side, which includes obviously a bit of sweat on it or whatever. So there's all sorts of theories, but I wondered if you might have anything.
The seam one's interesting because obviously that Kookaburra does have a flatter seam. But yeah, funny you say the sweat thing with a white Kookaburra, that does work, where you actually just make the one side heavy with sweat, and whether or not that's actual reverse, I'm not sure, but that does definitely have an impact on it. But yeah, when it comes to a red ball, I don't think I would dry. Just don't touch it. You have one person, keeper to one person who's got the driest hands, straight back to bowler. And just because even if you're not a sweater, your hands are clammy. As people, your hands are always just a little bit clammy, and that little bit might have an effect. So yeah, dryness is and a really, really good shine, like almost warm. I remember a couple of the guys we used to play with at the Dolphins, Kaya Zondo, he's a Zulu culture, and he used to shine it and he used to stay there, and he said I could see my ancestors in the reflection as he gave me the ball back. He's like, I can see my ancestors. He's shining there. He goes, I've just spoken to them, and he throws the ball back to me.
I love that. We do. Me and Wrighty have been all about ball care and looking after it, and it's good to know that others do that out there, because sometimes it's frustrating when people don't look after the ball. Do you remember the first time we played, like met each other and played? Do you remember where that was?
Against or with?
With
Oxford, early 2019. Was it 2019?
Yes, 2019. And we were very cold. I was watching Albo Ball. I basically want to talk about this just as in getting to know your teammates, for those listening out there, getting to know your bowling unit. And I watched Abba bowl in the warm-ups, and it was fire, like steaming in, letting go of it. And then we got into the game, and I felt like this was a make or break, or like relationship here with what happened. So Abba just wasn't for what I saw, it wasn't really coming out as well as it was in the warm-up. And Abba turned and said to me, I don't know what's wrong. Something's not clicking here. And I said to him, I think I know what it is, but I'll wait till after. And he's walking back as I said this. He said, no, tell me now. And I thought, if I'm not right on this, I don't know how this relationship's going to go. And I just said to him, it looks like you're not running in or picking your knees up as much as you were in the warm-up. And I watched him at the top of his mark, pick those knees up, steams in, lets this ball go, zips through, beats the outside of the edge, And he turned to me and went, "Thank you." Thank God for that. That could have gone so wrong. And I know, Wrighty, we've been the same of identifying stuff when we're bowling if we don't look on it. And me and Abbo have definitely built that up as well. How do you think, Abbo, do you think it's really important that relationships are built within the bowling unit of identifying things, when team are struggling?
It's a non-negotiable for me. I mean, you got to be there. You got to have trust with each other, and know that it's coming from a good place. And I think that's where the trust comes. And I mean, you and I hadn't really had any relationship there, but I knew straight away, like you and I were never going to compete for a spot in the team. We were both going to play, and all you were going to do was trying to help me. And that's what I would expect, and that's what I'd expect to give you similar advice. And Wrighty, you won't know this, but I've said this to Barks and Pop for a very long time. I was like, my idea of a bowling unit, I don't care who gets the wickets, just get us off the field. Like that's how you got to be. That's how you got to be thinking. And if it's a case of telling someone, listen, like you're not pulling your socks up, pull your socks up because we need to get off this field. Like you're there to take your 10 wickets. Let's do it. I'm not trying to be a knob here. And if it's Barks' day, I'm going to hug Barks. I'm going to high-five him. I'm going to walk him off that field because I know I'm walking off the field right behind him. And the bowlers, all you want to do, this is a bowlers union, all you want to do is get into the change room, put your feet up and watch the batters bat. That's what you want to do. So why not gel together and get the job done? And I think that is
completely agree.
It is the most important thing. And you know what, in a unit of 4, without a doubt, one guy's going to struggle. Every day, one of those guys are going to struggle. One's going to be struggling to okay, and the two are going to be on fire. Who it is that day, no one knows. It's going to be someone, but it's the maturity and the responsibility just to say, listen, I'm not here today, but I'm gonna crack on. Or if you don't realize it, for someone to pull you out and go, listen, you're not pulling your weight. Come, we 20 overs in here, and we only got 5 wickets. We should have 10. But no, I'm joking. But you know what I mean. And I think since that day, Barks and I have been totally open and honest with each other. And I mean, don't get us wrong. It hasn't been full send. We know each other well enough now to give it 2 to 3 overs before we say something, because you need to warm up. You need maybe he knows what he's going to do. Maybe he knows, but at some point you need to step in, and it's not a case of his third ball when it goes down leg. Box, why is down leg? You doing this? Like have the trust that he's played over 150 games. He knows his bowling, but they will get to a point where you can see it, and you're gonna have to step in and go. But that's where Barks and I think that's where I've enjoyed bowling with him the most, is that like what happens on the field stays on the field between him and I there at mid-on, mid-off and bowling, like from throwing toys out the cot to swearing to like retiring from cricket. It's all happened there. It's all happened at the top, but like you get off and it's all well at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'd say we're that comfortable now. At one point, and this happens quite often when Kyle's bowling, he'll be at the top of his mark and he'll set off running in, and I can hear like a duck quacking as he stride by stride, and then he'll walk back and like, "Did you hear that?" He just dropped his clubs as he's moving to bowl. It's hugely important, and I think for anyone listening, you rally around your bowlers. The job is to get your wickets, get off. It'll be your time one day, someone else is the next. But if you operate like that, I think you're going to get more rewards down the line for sure.
I feel like it's just nice to be part of something bigger than just you, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I think the idea of being part of a unit, people don't associate cricket as it's like an individual's game within a team, right? But actually, as a bowling unit, I don't necessarily think so. I agree with you guys. You can kind of motivate each other. You can make it a bit, like the idea of like a rugby, before a rugby game, you can get fired up and pumped up, get round. That's something special, definitely, about when you take the field. If you've got, 4 like-minded guys that are going to leave it out on the park, it's it's a special feeling. And what's it like with Bassi then? Obviously, he's an enjoyable character. Where does he fit in with all of this?
I'd say man of few words. Hey, Barks doesn't say much, but usually what he does, what comes out of his mouth, is just golden. Like, very, very good sense of humor. He's just a class bowler. I still don't quite know what he does. I haven't I'm being serious. Like, innocuous, really. I think he's one of the most innocuous bowlers. It's like it's not quick, but then suddenly, like, through the air, then it hits the pitch, and like Brownie takes it above his head, and I'm like, where's he extracted that from? His subtle variations and using the crease well. He's got an excellent wrist. But one thing he has said to me, which I can't get my head around, and I think it's playing in Pakistan a lot on pitches that are very unresponsive to seamers, is he intentionally plays with his pace, where I'm one rhythm. I'm like, I need to be bowling this optimum every ball. And he's like, no, bhai, you don't have to. He's like, you can bowl some at 70% and then you bowl 100% and then you rush him. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, that blows my mind. That's gonna mess up my rhythm so badly. But he's got this way of doing it, and he plays. And I think that's where he does a lot of batters, especially on flat wickets, where he hits him on the pad, and you're like, that wasn't quick, but it was probably quite a bit quicker than his 3 or 4 overs before that, where he's just hasn't put much in, and then just suddenly rushes them. It's an incredible skill, and I've spoken to a lot of subcontinent bowlers over the years, and they talk about that, and I've never understood it. I understand what they're doing, but I've never understood how to actually implement it, because I think it would just blow my rhythm.
Well, with that,
I'm with you.
Yeah, with that, it's the fact that obviously he goes up and down the gears, but he's still able to get the ball to move the same way, even though if it's at 70% or 100%. That's a big difference. Obviously, I reckon he bowls 2 balls where he bends his back or fingers, because he looks like it's all wrist.
Yeah.
But there is a big difference of pace, nip, movement off the wicket. And I spoke to Ollie Stone, who Mo got out last year twice. Just said, how do you find it facing him? And he said, all I can say is, you kind of think, there it is. No, it isn't. It's gone. He's a bit mystical in how he operates, Mo. It's really subtle, but it's up there as one of the best I've seen.
Yeah.
Would you, if you had a young 18-year-old bowler, would you advise them to bowl like that, or would you tell them to bowl like you and run in, hard every ball optimally?
No, I would tell them to bowl. I'd tell them to bowl like Mo, I think.
Fair play.
Yeah,
you're quite good at doing that, Keith, aren't you? Just taking a little bit off, shaking up, whatever.
So
you're quite good at that. Just going down a gear.
Not like Mo, no. I think you can find a gear which you find you can operate in, and I think I found that through bowling in the indoors in the winter, is that you can't go full tilt in the indoor, and obviously even when you start going outdoors, you're not full tilt straight away, so you're building up on your overs, your intensity. And I think there's a level you can find where actually you can operate at a certain way. And I was told from Jim Troughton, when they used to play Durham, obviously you had Harmison, you had Onions. They said about Otis Gibson, why he was so effective is he was accurate and he was sharp when he wanted to be, but he would go through the gears a little bit and wait for an opening, get a wicket, and then he'd ramp it up. I'm not that, but I think it depends how you're feeling, depends how your rhythm is, to be able to go up the gears a little bit.
Oh, you know what I find hard is when people will say, this wicket, you've just got to kiss the pitch. And I'm like, oh God. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I just want to slam a length as best I can. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I nod along and pretend I know. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's not along
Over
the
the
wicket.
head.
Like, you got to go along the wicket, not into it. I only bowl one
If
ball.
I go along the wicket, I would bowl pump, like proper half volley pump. And I wouldn't move the ball as much either. I feel like I wouldn't be finishing off and all of these things. You kind of answered the question I had for you about how, if 100% effort ball, where are you every ball? Do you bowl 100% every ball, or are you kind of like do you know what I mean?
This is going to sound like I'm contradicting myself, but at the crease, yes. Sometimes in my run up, no. So I think that's where some bowlers probably get caught by county cricket, with especially 4-day cricket and how much cricket there is, that you can still be 100% at the crease, but doesn't mean that you're running at 100%. So there's still the solid landing, the ripping through the crease, like trying to get your feet through as quick as you can, not spending time there, being strong at the crease. There's those things that still keeps you up in a very competitive bracket, without having to steam in sixth gear all day, because you'll go through it like. So, for example, if I come back at the end of a day and I'm now starting my 16th over or 17th over, those first 3, I'm probably really getting into my run-up, but I'm ripping the ball at the crease. And then probably by 4, 5, 6, I'm back to really like running in 80, 90%, running in hard and ripping it at the crease. So it sounds like the two are not connected. It sounds like the two are connected, but they are. I don't think they are. That you can save, but you at the crease the same. And again, that's very hard to explain to someone who doesn't bowl a lot. But as bowlers, you would know kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously from standing mid on for quite a long time with you, you can see the difference. You're always attacking. You're strong at the crease. That's just how you are. But the difference in gear for you is that run up. When your tail's up, there is a definite gear change in your run up, but you still apply yourself the exact same at the crease, and that's where you are able to find another gear almost on attacking the batsman. And watching it, you kind of can see how. Good luck, batsman, trying to face this, because there's no holding back here. It's everything now. You've got the full Kyle Abbott run up and at the crease. I'm not saying that you are not putting in when you're bowling, because you were still 100% at the crease when you were not flying in, but you can see a shifting a gear or two in your run up, picking up your knees, your pace is up in your run up and everything. I understand what you mean, mate.
And there's some days, like you guys know, that you try to do that, you try have the good run up and everything, and it's just not there. And then some days it happens and you're like, I need to bottle this up because it feels so natural, feels so easy. I feel like I've got a lot in the tank, and that can sort of come at the most random time that you can imagine. It's not the first session of the season. It might be the 5th game in a row on the 4th day where you hit something and you just don't know why, but it just happens. But going back, something I said earlier about I haven't worked at all on my action over the years, but excuse me, what I have put in a lot of time on has actually been my run-up, and I look at my run-up more now than anything. If I'm not bowling well, I go back to my run-up. I don't look at my action. There's normally something in my rhythm of my 20-odd meters or whatever it is. It's either I'm too slow, I'm too fast, or there's something just out. Because once I get that right, I think that's what Barks was alluding to. Once I get that right, everything at the crease comes automatic.
Yeah.
So if I'm yeah, if it's not clicking at the crease, it's probably somewhere in my 20 meters, and I need to figure that out instead of trying to get technical. So that's kind of where I'm thinking if things are starting to go wrong.
You mentioned there about your run up. When you say you worked on your run up, do you mean specifically on the run up, or things like your running technique and your conditioning, or are you talking about the cricket skill of the run up?
It's going to sound really boring, but I did say I keep things simple. A fitness trainer, a stopwatch, and 2 cones 20 meters apart, and not run up speed, but just a nice rhythm. And you go, right, that 20 meters has taken me, it's 13 seconds. You go, right, the next one, 13, and I just used to get into rhythm. I felt when I was in running rhythm, I would then get into bowling rhythm. So I used to separate that. It is everything's always been a rhythm thing for me when bowling. And if there was one thing that I'd always go back to, I'd always look at first would be that.
This is good. We've gone on quite a long time here. I feel bad, but I keep coming up with more and more questions.
No, that's a really interesting one, because I've not heard anyone look at doing that, for instance, for a bowling rhythm kind of feel of almost basically, this feels really good and I'm in the nets. Let me get someone timing my run up to hit the crease or to bound or whatever, and go, that's where I want to be operating in, because that's when I'm bowling my best. That's where my rhythm is. So you then, when you're playing, you're not counting in your head, but you're going off, you're gauging off how it feels, aren't you? So that's quite an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah. When I've come across some younger bowlers, I've always said to them, and you're struggling, like picture almost like a green line from the top of your run up, or like a green line 0.5 meter wide from the top of your run up through to the keeper, over off stump, like through to the keeper. That's your line. Everything left and right of that is red. So if you can get your hands, your head, your feet, everything down that green line going towards the keeper, like that's where your energy needs to go. And Pop talks about energy and paths, all his fancy coaching words. You know what Pop's like. And yeah, it's such a big part that I think gets neglected, where something so small in a run up throws you off, and that throws you off at the crease. Because if you're a bit long in your run up, you get a little bit long in the crease, you're going to fall over. If you shorten your run up, you're going to spend time at the crease. All these little things add up.
So even like with the run up, this sounds really simple, but I've seen it with a few players, a few young bowlers, is they don't repeat what they do in the warm ups and in the training. So in training, on warm ups, they will run in quite hard. Obviously, I feel like they're running at their optimum pace to bowl a good ball, and they execute well, whether it's Yorkers, good length with the red ball, whatever. But then come into a game, and it's like the running in with the handbrake up, and then their actual alignment's off, the lengths are off, and it's like clearly obvious. Like, look, you've got to repeat what you do in your training. But when that's on, it kind of, you can't expect the same outcome. If you're doing something different from what you've been working on in training and practice and whatever, and then you come into a game and do totally different, then don't expect the same results.
So I totally agree. And in my opinion, I think, and kind of also based on some experiences, and every bowler is guilty of it, but I think probably youngsters more, is neglecting that front line. So you're running in a practice or in warm-ups, and everyone does it. You bowl half a yard past that front line, and now suddenly in a game you need to bring it back. It's a long way. Even when an umpire says to you, hey, you're getting close and your heel's just behind, to get your whole foot behind, you feel like you've now lost a meter on the pitch. The pitch has suddenly got a meter long and you've moved a foot back. We've all felt that. We've all felt that. And I think that discipline in training isn't carried through to a game. So now they're bowling from 20 yards. Now I have to go to 21, and then suddenly it becomes totally different.
Yeah.
I think with Wrighty spoke earlier about you've averaged 55 wickets a season since being here in county championship, with an average of 21 from just county stuff and 22 international level. But I'm aware that there was definitely maybe 2 seasons where you didn't start the season that well. You were 6 to 8 games in and not many wickets. But then something happened, which I'd like you to explain on what you did or what you found, where you've then gone and picked up 30, 40 wickets in the next 8 games. What happened there when it was going bad, and what happened when the penny dropped?
Yeah, unsure really, because as you said, like it has happened probably at least twice in that time. I think majority of it I'd put down to bowling. Well, I say bowling, pre-season bowling, and not having enough overs in the legs. And by the time when you are starting to pick up, and it's not necessarily, I don't want to make it sound like it's a result-based thing that, as soon as you start picking up wickets, everything's fine again. I clearly remember those 2 years. It did not feel good in those first couple of games, 3, 4, 5 games. But majority of it was rhythm. There was just I wasn't hitting consistent line and length. I wasn't making batters play enough. And if I had to narrow it down, I would say it was probably coming into the season just too light on overs and not having enough overs in the legs. And it took 3-4 weeks to build up that bowling fitness and then to start hitting my line and length consistently as I had done in previous years.
Yeah. Interesting.
At the start of this year, then we've got the Kookaburra, haven't we, in the first class games? How will you operate with that? Will you go back to your sort of old school South African style, maybe shape a few, or will you stick with your looking to hit the rope as hard as you can and nip it around?
Right, I can't tell you.
I need to know because I'm thinking to myself.
No, I can't tell you. And listen, it's going to be an interesting one to see how the balls they hold up, because cookers are not very good when there's damp or any sort of moisture around. They tend to swell and hold that moisture. I think the Dukes are really good with that lacquer. It just kind of runs off it, so they stay in better nick. So it's going to be very interesting to see how those cookers go when it's slightly damp. But if there's a seam on it, and every ball is not 100% round, so if it hits, it's going to move off the surface. But it also might move in the air, right? Early season, you never know.
I think we're at Headingley first up. If it's as flat as last year, I'm dreading it already.
We're about 5 hours north of that.
You've got Durham first up, have you?
Yeah.
They're a good side, you know. They were comfortably the best in Div 2 last year, deserved winners.
Dangerous stuff.
Yeah, they've got quite. I think you'll like it. They've got a nice bowling unit up there. To be fair, if they're all fit and not doing their England stuff, so it'll be a good contest. Really good contest. Sorry, I've drifted there. Keith, I apologise. Right. You have another question?
I think I'm all done with questions, mate. Obviously, I get to see you bowl every day, so it's always a pleasure. Another 50 wickets will be nice, mate. Obviously, last year you didn't play every game, did you? Did you?
No.
And you still took 46 wickets, which is still, that's the first time you've not reached 50 wickets, which is unreal. But I just want to say, mate, it's been a pleasure to play with you, and I'm looking forward to this season as well.
Thanks, Box. You too.
Right,
God, another Hampshire loving. Look, it has been really good. I've enjoyed it. I actually want to go and bowl. You've made me want to go and bowl right now, to be honest. Which, it takes a lot.
Makes one of us.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, Keith, shall I play the outro?
Of course you can, mate. Hope
What's
everyone's
good with the
enjoyed
old
listening.
audio? Abbo, yeah, look, thanks very much, Abbo. Appreciate your time, and hopefully, if you like the episode, everyone, share, subscribe, and all those cool things. And we'll see you next time. Take it easy.